The 19-year-old jumbo jet was flying at 31,000 feet when British aviation officials say they lost radar contact with the plane. It had been airborne for 52 minutes when an explosion was reported in the Scottish community of Lockerbie.
I believe the thing was on fire when it went across there was definitely, it was trailing flames when it went over the village.
Their house is there's just a 30-foot crater where their house was. Like, I can't even find the house. It's gone, like.
The plane slammed into homes and a gas station. Flames lit up the night sky. Debris is reported over a 2-mile area. Some witnesses now say that the plane was breaking apart before it came down near the main highway between London and Glasgow.
It was like liquid fire started to rain down on the car, and bits of concrete and debris, and we even found a piece of the aluminium bedded in the car.
15 crew members, 240 passengers, and 3 infants were on the plane. There are no reported survivors. The death toll on the ground has not been determined. At JFK Airport, where the plane was scheduled to arrive at 9 o'clock tonight, relatives and friends have been ushered away from the glare of TV lights, their grief kept private.
On the family tree hangs a special little ornament meant to greet 9-year-old Stacy Stenette. Beneath it, gifts that Stacy's family sent from Germany to be opened when the Stenettes arrived home.
It's a shock to this community that it can happen this way.
But for Stacy's relatives, her mother's family, the homecoming celebration shattered when Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over Scotland. On board, the special little girl, her 36-year-old mother, Charlotte Stenette, and Stacy's stepfather, Army Private First Class Michael Stenette, a computer technician with the 1st Battalion, 77th Field Artillery, based in Wiesbaden, West Germany.
They've never been away from us, and it was real hard for all of them to leave.
For this family, sending their loved ones to Germany was one of the hardest things they had ever done, second only to not having them return.
I think everybody should have known and had a choice of whether to go or not to go.
There is some bitterness here for government decisions that did not disclose anonymous threats to bomb some U.S.-bound plane leaving Frankfurt. The government explains that decision by saying there are often numerous threats and disclosure can often bring more. For this family, recent speculation that a terrorist bomb led to the crash seems almost unbelievable. As they put it, we're just a quiet little community out here. We just never thought this could happen to us. Shelley Koffler, Channel 5 News.
Look at us out here. We're just a little community. We're just a family. We don't think about things like that. I would have never dreamed that something like this could happen to my family.
Under Linda White's Christmas tree sits a gift from Sister Charlotte's family. Dangling from a bough, a special ornament meant to welcome home a 9-year-old child. But the crash of Pan Am Flight 103 in Scotland cut short a surprise homecoming. Little Stacy Stenette, her mother 36-year-old Charlotte Stenette, and stepfather 26-year-old Private First Class Michael Stenette all perished in the crash. The family lived in Wiesbaden, West Germany, where Michael worked as an Army computer technician.
And I think the government needs to know that it doesn't just happen just to, somebody else. It comes home.
News that government and airline officials kept under wraps threats to bomb some plane leaving Germany has brought bitterness to this home. Though the cause of the Pan Am flight is not certain, and the U.S. government defends the secrecy, saying there are often many threats, and disclosure can bring more. Nonetheless, a grieving mother wonders what happened to airport security.
But they still should have some kind of a detector that would tell when anybody went on a plane with anything that would harm any people.
The speculation that terrorists may have planted a fatal bomb seems unbelievable to these family members who say sending their loved ones to Germany 6 months ago was one of the hardest things they had ever done. The only thing harder, not seeing them return. Shelley Koffler, Channel 5 News.
The people yesterday.
What is
was going to have to be done yet to really, so Sister seemed happier than she had been.
I think everybody should have known and had a choice of whether to go or not to go. I think the government needs to know that it doesn't just happen just to, somebody else. It comes home. Someday it will come home to everyone. And it can happen at any time, any place. And they need to let people know.
Helicopters and more than 600 people searched miles of the Scottish countryside today for victims of Wednesday night's crash. Searchers extended their hunt to more than 30 miles outside of Lockerbie. But clothing, money, and mail from the plane has been found as far away as 70 miles from the crash site. Police Chief John Boyd said today that there would be no scaling down of the search until the bodies of all 258 people on board the Boeing 747 were found, as well as those who were killed on the ground. The recovery of 84 bodies today brings the number of bodies found to 239, but none of the bodies have been positively identified. About 20 Americans who lost loved ones in that crash were there today to help in the process.
First and foremost, to assist in the identification process of the bodies, and for our own personal need to be near our loved ones. Everybody's, the whole town, everybody's been very helpful. The town itself is going through a major trauma.
That trauma comes because the crash killed at least one Lockerbie resident. 10 others are still listed as missing. That trauma has dampened the Christmas holiday for the tight-knit community of 3,000.
I don't feel it's like Christmas at all. I feel all unsettled and, I don't feel it.
But there are feelings in that town, feelings of sorrow for those who have been lost, and questions as to why it happened. There has been speculation of sabotage.
Through the fog blanketing the Scottish hills, searchers look for clues of how Flight 103 shattered and scattered debris over a 100-square-mile area. Today, investigators found a suitcase and pieces of wreckage showing signs of damage that could have been caused by a bomb. So far, investigators have found nothing to state otherwise.
No evidence of a structural failure has so far been found.
If it was a bomb, relatives of the victims say the U.S. should retaliate.
I would hope to God that our government would definitely take a long, hard look at this and maybe realize what the Israelis do and take a little bit of their philosophy in dealing with these acts of terrorism.
As for the Lockerbie residents, social workers are going door to door with pamphlets to help people deal with their feelings.
Shame, anger, memories, let down, and hope. And in fact explains all those emotions as being fairly normal in this kind of situation, in this kind of tragedy.
Luckily, no tragedy for the 110 people on this Eastern 727 today. A 14-inch hole formed in the fuselage. The plane was going from Rochester, New York to Atlanta, but forced to land in Charleston, West Virginia. Many passengers thought of the Pan Am bomb possibility.
There's a loud noise. The oxygen masks weren't working. We were very nervous about that. They were working a little bit, so some of them were working, but not all of them. But we were pretty lucky we're alive.
Flight 103 was crossing the English-Scottish border at 31,000 feet. There was an explosion, probably in a front cargo area.
This section houses the entire heart of the airplane. It contains the electrical system, the electronics, the computers, all of the units which go to the control of the airplane.
The crew never even had time to use the radio. In seconds, huge sections of the 747 were falling from the sky onto Lockerbie. It was no ordinary bomb. After looking at fragments from the cargo bay under an electron microscope, investigators said their findings
are consistent with the use of a high-performance plastic explosive.
Stuff that can be molded, like putty, to look like something it is not, even under X-ray.
I think this is a point which is important and should be stressed, that explosives have, in a sense, outpaced the equipment for detecting explosives.
New technology is coming, machines that can pick out plastique, but not for another couple of years. So the FAA is already considering a new security policy, the tightest humanly possible. And the FBI
will continue to offer full resources of the Bureau in cooperation with British authorities to identify those who are responsible for this act and bringing them to the bar of justice.
Today in Lockerbie, several ceremonies marking the tragedy took place, with Pan Am offering free flights to scores of American families who might want to attend. Only a handful of the victims' families took the airline up on the offer. 𝗣𝗶 𝗙𝗶𝗴𝗵𝘁 and her family were not among them. Instead, she and her daughter braved the North Texas chill and visited the Duncanville Cemetery, where her youngest daughter, her granddaughter, and her son-in-law are buried. Charlotte Stinnett, her daughter Stacy, and her husband Mike of Duncanville were among those who died aboard Pan Am Flight 103.
You're still waiting for them to come home. You know, it's like it's a never-ending thing. You're still waiting for them to come.
The family says it has been a lonely ordeal. Around these parts, they're the only ones who lost relatives aboard the flight. Most other surviving family members live in the Northeast.
A lot of people, you can mention it to them and they, well, I didn't even know anything about that. You know, what are you talking about?
Family members say to most people, Flight 103 was just another tragic plane crash. A crash authorities say was caused by a bomb disguised as a radio cassette. Terrorists are suspected, but so far, no one has been arrested. And for 𝗣𝗶 𝗙𝗶𝗴𝗵𝘁, that makes the loss of her family members all the more painful.
I buried my mother and my daddy and my husband and my youngest sister and my oldest brother, but they're still, you know, it's not the same.
Southwest Flight 241 evacuated after arriving safely from Lubbock. An unidentified man had called in a threat to the airline's San Antonio reservations desk.
You never know, or from my past experience, you have to take everything seriously.
A rash of terrorist threats and a promise kept over Lockerbie, Scotland, have heightened concern even at smaller domestic service airports in the United States.
Everybody in general is much more aware of what could happen in this day and age.
Love Field security is shared by airline personnel and the Dallas Police Department. Sergeant Mike Bostic says the flying public is safer than it may think. Security gates are watched from above.
We do have an officer at the checkpoint itself, but we monitor that in case a situation were to arise. We can very quickly get other officers sent to that area.
Bostic says all lockers are past the security gates, so all packages left in lockers at Love Field have been screened, all but eliminating the chance of time bombs. Bomb threats don't happen here often.
Probably in the last 10 years, to my knowledge, probably about a half a dozen, and every one of them has turned out to be negative.
Perriman says in each case the hoaxes were treated like the real thing. He and Bostic agree advances in technology, including plastic explosive detectors, will help security people at all airports keep pace with any threats, real or imagined. Jeff Eliasoff, Texas News 5.
I had a choice of being loyal to my country or being loyal to my employer, and I chose to be loyal to my country.
Natasha Getty worked in this downtown office tower for the daughter and son-in-law of billionaire 𝗗𝗏 𝗙𝗃. She says she saw what she thought was wrongdoing and started copying documents, thousands of them.
It's a wide range of documents, everything from personal messages to phone books to business cards to photographs to meeting memos, letters, correspondence, documents.
Basically everything. She says she gave it all to federal investigators 2 years ago. Just last month, agents arrested this man, William Bodine, accused of being at the center of an illegal plan to help Libya buy influence with the Bush administration. It was 1992. George Bush was running for re-election. Libya wanted Bush to lift the harsh sanctions imposed after the Pan Am 103 bombing in 1988. If it worked, investigators say Libya would have secretly funneled money to Bush's campaign and set up a phony business to enrich wealthy Republicans. NBC News reports investigators believe Bodine enlisted Republican fundraiser 𝗗𝗏 𝗙𝗃 to help. The network quotes sources as saying 𝗙𝗃 tried to arrange a meeting between President Bush, himself, and a top Libyan official. In 1992, 𝗙𝗃 held a Bush fundraiser at his Dallas home attended by the president himself. But court documents say the Secret Service stopped the Libyan, who was in Dallas illegally, from attending. At the same time, the Libyans were talking to 𝗙𝗃's son-in-law, Henry Billingsley, about buying land north of Dallas at allegedly inflated prices, as much as $200 million. The former worker, Natasha Getty, says she has all the documents to prove it.
felt I had an ethical obligation to do it. When I became aware that this was going on, I didn't really have a choice.
These ladies are on their way home to Minnesota from a convention in Dallas. They may not be world travelers, but they do find comfort in knowing airport security is about to reach a higher level.
I think it's great. There's a lot of bad things going on right now, and if they want to beef it up, good.
Hal Tate has a much different experience. He's going back to his job in the Middle East, and on his way, he'll go through many airport security checkpoints.
It doesn't hurt to have a little extra security. After all, Pan Am 103 is a vivid memory for me.
Pan Am Flight 103 happened in December 1988. A terrorist bomb killed 270 people. It's something everyone hopes never happens again. But recent events have U.S. officials worried of an increased possibility of terrorist attacks.
I think people shouldn't be afraid to fly, but at the same time, I do think people should be aware that the FAA does not increase security levels at this or any other airport just for the sake of inconveniencing the flying public.
The alert means passengers will see more uniformed officers. Employee ID badges will be checked more thoroughly. And some of the security responsibility falls back on passengers. The Air Transportation Association says travelers should arrive early in case of delays, make sure luggage has the passenger's name, carry a photo ID, and perhaps most importantly,
luggage and carry-on items should not be left unattended. And if a stranger or someone unknown to you comes up and says, "Would you do me a favor and carry this on board the airplane while I go pick up another piece of luggage?" I'd say no.
Seeing something that indicated this could be happening.
There is always the possibility that a security